Hi everyone, I'm Mike and this is the Sunday Art Show. This week I'm on the northern edge of Exeter, out in the car, and I just thought I'd go out for a bit of a drive and see, what I could find to paint. And to be honest, I was thinking of doing some landscape work, but as I came along this road, just on the right here, I spotted some horses in the field. So decided to go out and have a go at painting and drawing some of these horses from life. So my first time painting horses outdoors, so pretty good thing to do, pretty good fun. So I've got with me the mixed media paper. So if you saw the video from a couple of weeks ago down at the weir of the River Exe, that's the same paper I was using there for watercolour. And I'm just using my phone here, as you can see, to take a few still photos and also grab a little bit of video footage so that, when I'm back at home, if I want to do some more detailed work on these horses, then, it's always useful to have, better reference, basically. So, I try to build up a little catalogue of photographs and video footage so that, if I'm at home and I can't get out into the field, then, I've got plenty to work from, plenty of original source material to work from as well. So what I'm unpacking now is this little kit of inktense tablets, So it's a little painting kit designed specifically to be able to put in your pocket. You can see how small and compact it is, and you can see the horse is already interested in this inktense product. The word is out, and the kit comes with a little water brush. So first time I've used one of these brushes as well. So basically, if you haven't seen these before, the handle of the brush is made out of flexible plastic, and within the handle it contains water. That's what I'm just taking the lid off of now. And then you can screw into that the other half of the brush, which has got the brush tip on it. So when you're working away, by simply squeezing the handle of the brush, you can dispense more water from the brush onto your painting or onto the paint if you're mixing a colour. And well, you'll see as we go along. So this was a lot better than I was expecting it to be honest. It's a pretty good piece of kit, and certainly for something you keep in your pocket. You can see I'm just trying to work out how to get the water to come out, because as I say, genuinely the first time I've used it, you can see how clean the palette is, and if you've caught glimpses of any of the palettes that I actually have used, you'll know they're rarely that clean. So this really is the first time I've used it. Anyway, so once I'd worked out how to dispense the water, then I managed to get going pretty well. The only thing I did struggle with is this is a round brush, and I usually use a flat brush, so I did struggle a little bit in getting some of the effects I wanted. But some of that was also the fact that, I'm working outdoors and, I don't have a proper easel, I'm just holding the pad in my hand. So, on the whole, highly recommend this inktense kit. It's definitely something I'm going to be keeping in my art bag when I'm out and about, in case I want to do a quick sketch. So at the moment, as you can see, luckily for me, this curious horse has come over, and he's just kind of checking out what I'm doing and standing remarkably still. So much like the time I painted the seagulls from life down at Fistral Beach, I'm feeling a little bit of time pressure because I'm desperate to kind of get this sketch down before the horse moves too much. So you can see already, it's just the way it is, isn't it, with animals? His head started to move a little bit, but on the whole he's staying pretty still. So I've already popped in the outline of the head and the torso, just done the forelegs, and now popping in the back legs as well. And obviously, I don't know how well you can tell from the video, but the road is at quite a higher level compared to the field. So it's maybe, I don't know, between 4 and 6 feet higher, and there's a bank within the field on the other side of that wire fence you can see. So consequently, I'm looking down on this horse, so my sketch is, it's being captured from something of a weird perspective. But you can see with this little inktense travel kit how quickly you can mix up different colours. Now, one of the things I did struggle with a bit today was, and this is purely my inexperience, is that looking at the inktense panels, the little tablets, it was sometimes difficult to tell at a glance exactly which colour was which, and you couldn't really tell until you'd wetted some on your brush and put it onto the mixing palette. But again, that's a problem which is going to go away with time. So the inktense, as some of you may know already, is that the cool thing about it is it's water soluble. You can put down great swathes of colour very quickly, but once it's dry, it's completely waterproof. So it has some of the similar properties to acrylic. So it's a really nice, and watercolour actually, it's kind of the two combined. So it's a really nice medium to use. Not something I've used a huge amount of, but in some of my beach work, where I was painting outdoors down on the Cornish coast, it's something I've used there, in conjunction with acrylic and with watercolour. So this is where I was kind of struggling, really. You know, if you've seen some of my animal paintings before, what I tend to do is use a flat brush and curve the brush strokes to follow the contours of the animal's body. And because most animals, or that I paint at least, are covered with fur or hair, the flat brush also puts down kind of some of the texture of the coat of the animal. Now here, because I've got this round brush, I was finding that for line work, like I'm doing now, it worked really quite well, but it didn't really give me the effect I wanted in terms of portraying the form of the animal. Excuse me. Sorry about that, just had to grab a quick drink. I'm actually recovering from my third cold in the last 2 months. So that's an all-time lifetime record for me, so yay! Anyway, so what I was saying was that with this round brush, I'm struggling a little bit to be as efficient as I am in terms of getting the effects I want compared to using the flat brush. So what I plan on doing in the future at some point is when I come out with this kit, I'm definitely going to keep using this little this water brush or whatever you call it, but I'm also going to bring a flat brush with me, so I've kind of got the best of both worlds. So now I'm looking at this horse, and you can see the horse has moved quite a bit now, so I'm getting a side view now. And I'm just kind of pondering, is he going to change his mind and look back at me, decide that he isn't? So I leave that first sketch as it was, and have another go, popping in some quick line work of the same horse, but this time from a side view. And you can see that with the inktense, because you can dilute it much like watercolour, it's very free-flowing when it's dilute. And obviously, as you move the brush across the page, the great thing with this little brush is with a quick squeeze of the handle, you can just get a bit more water dispensed. So you don't have to revisit your palette with the tip of the brush quite as often as you might expect, because you can just add a little bit more water, and it's really, really, really great for very quick, fluid line, expressive line sketching when you're away from home. You know, you can just have this thing in your pocket, have a small pad of paper, and you know, within a few seconds you're ready to paint. So just starting to block in again, this time having another go at some shadow work, having hopefully learned a little bit about how this brush responds from the previous sketch. So you can see I'm just putting in some shadow areas to try and make this horse look a bit three-dimensional. And this one I'm a little bit more happy with. Obviously it's a simpler treatment so far than the previous sketch, but I feel I've captured the line of the horse quite well, although perhaps I've given him a little bit too much of a pot belly. Now the line I'm putting in here, I don't know how well you were able to see, or I can't see too much of the horse at the moment, but from earlier in the video you may have seen this horse is a lovely sort of chestnut brown, but it's got kind of quite big patches of white. So I've just kind of indicated the outlines of those white patches there. So popping in a little bit of this chestnut brown colour now on the hooves. And it was pretty cold today, but you know, for the most part, I didn't feel the cold too much, because you know, you're so in the zone when you're working away, especially when painting animals, because you have to work so quickly. And you can see the horse is deciding to wander off now. So that's sketch 2. I decided to leave that one there. Here's sketch 3, coming in with the blue again, one of my favourite colours to outline the form of animals with, or people for that matter actually. I just really like working with blue, but what you can see is I'm having to change the position of the head already, and the horse is moving quite a lot. So although that one started out okay, decided to leave that one there. And what I actually ended up doing was coming back the following day, so you can see the lighting conditions have changed, but luckily for me the horses are now on their feeder. So this time, rather than start with the brush, which as I mentioned I was kind of struggling a little bit to work as efficiently as I'd like to, I decided to start off with some biro. Now I appreciate, you know, because of the lighting conditions and the camera I'm using, you probably can't see the biro lines as well as you would like at this stage in the video. But hopefully you can see enough to see that I've just basically popped in the outline of the body. I'm just working on the head of the animal now. And what I'd hoped was that by holding the pad of paper in the bright sunlight, albeit with some shadows of the branches cast across the pad of paper, I was kind of hoping that my little GoPro style camera would be able to pick up the image rather better than it is. But nevertheless, hopefully you can see that I've got a loose and quite faint outline there. So having done that, what I do now is go back to my little inktense kit, and you can see that because the horses are at the feeder, they are moving their head a little bit, obviously as they dip in for food and look over to me. But on the whole, their bodies are staying pretty still. But by kind of keeping more to the line work that I've put in, and as I say, obviously the biro puts down a much, much finer line than I can achieve easily and quickly with the brush. I found this a much easier way to work, actually. And you can see I'm now starting to do some of the contour work. It's still not quite the style I would like, but I'm putting the contours in with this rounded brush as I gradually get used to it. So, yeah, so it's definitely worth exploring this little technique, I think. And I think that's one of the really cool things with art, and and just sort of any creative practice really, is that the problems that we encounter, they can often lead to a new little technique. So I don't think I've used biro. I certainly haven't used biro and inktense in combination before when I've been working outside. And I'm trying to think if I've ever used biro first, followed by paint at all in the past. I've definitely used biro within mixed media, using things like marker pen or charcoal or pencil and biro. And I may have used biro on top of paint after the paint is dried, but I don't think I've started with biro and then painted within it. So that's nothing big deal, but just a new little avenue to explore there. So once again, I've been really lucky, and the horse is staying very still on the whole. As you can see, I'm painting the horse on the right there of the feeder, and trying to work tonally and trying to work in a similar way to the way I would if I was at home, by kind of blocking in the main patches of colour and tone. And this little inktense kit is so small that as you can see, I can just kind of hold it against my pad of paper with a thumb. It's very light. Yeah, so highly recommend. So adding in some of the colour of the mane now as well, indicating the lower rear legs. So hopefully you can see, hopefully the camera's giving you a good enough image to see that what I've done here is, although I've used a variety of colours on this horse, I am still thinking tonally. So the top of the horse is very much lighter than the lower part of the horse. We've got some deeper shadows under the belly, and if you look at the hindquarters, the rear leg there, I've started to capture some of the shadows and the light that's catching the coat of the animal there. Now what I'm doing now, so I started with my biro drawing, and then having put the tonal work in, I just started to put in some more line work with the brush. But I then decided, well, I don't know if I want to go that way, so popping the pad down onto the ground, a quick cast shadow on the ground with the brush. And now what I'm doing, you can see my gloves have come on because I'm getting pretty cold now, but I'm going back in with the biro, so the inktense dries really quickly, even in these cold conditions. So certainly if you put a thin layer down, so that's really good. And it means that I can go over the top of that with the biro and add a little bit more detail. So I'm kind of drawing back into my painting. And obviously the whole study could be considered a sketch, but I started with drawing, I did some painting, and now I'm drawing back onto and on top of the painting. And that's a technique I really love to do in pretty much all my work. I'll generally start very loose, try and define things a bit more, and then maybe draw back in or simplify and kind of oscillate back and forth between the different techniques. I really enjoyed working that way. You get lots of unexpected effects. It helps remind you not to get too tight and too obsessed with detail. But at the same time, you can selectively pick out little bits of detail. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm using kind of cross-hatching. I'm using all the little kind of squiggly lines you can make with biro to describe some of the texture on the just above the hooves of the animal. And what I do in just a moment, if memory serves me correctly, is that if you look off in the distance, you can just about see when I look up. We've got some rolling hills with hedge-lined fields and things. And so just to place the horse within an environment, using the biro, what I'll do in a minute is just put in a few simple lines to indicate a landscape. So one of the great things about working from life is that I believe it really kind of programs your memory. You know, even if the sketch you do at the time is quite quick and not all that detailed, the act of looking at the actual animal and how it moves and how it reacts, compared to, you know, looking at the photograph of the animal, which obviously just captures a single moment in time. I believe sketching from life really kind of programs your memory and gives you a knowledge of the anatomy and the way the light plays over the animal, and it really helps you remember some of the character of these animals as well and how they behave. So this is why I love working from life, really. Even if you don't use your life studies to create your kind of finished work for an exhibition, and you do use reference photos, because you've kind of put in the legwork of going out into the open air and drawing from life, it really informs that work, you know. So yeah, I can't, you know, much like the Inktense kit, can't really recommend this experience highly enough. Really, really good fun. So what I'm doing now is just, I'll put a close-up on the screen so you can see the biro work a bit better, but I'm adding a few little tufts of hair on the mane, which are kind of blowing in the breeze. So what I've ended up with really is almost more of an illustration than a painting, I guess, because it's very much dependent on line and wash. And I guess line and wash it's a happy medium, isn't it, between a pure drawing and a pure painting. But again, something I enjoy a lot. So I just noticed at this point that the line of the head that I had was slightly incorrect. And fortunately, this particular horse has a flash of white going down the front of its face. So I was able to include an extra outline and use the bit of unpainted paper to depict that little flash of white. So just looking back and forth now, seeing what else I have to do. And this is what I was talking about a moment ago. I'm just popping in a little horizon line here, some hills rolling down from right to left. And I'm not copying the distant landscape at all, really, but I am using it for inspiration. So what I'm doing is I'm looking at the shape of the hills and thinking, well, how can I use that within my sketch? And then when I look at the hedgerows or the trees, I'll think, well, you know, maybe I'll use that particular shape of tree, but I'll put it in this particular position on my drawing. And as I say, hopefully on the close-up you can see the line work using the biro much better, and indeed the work of the paint, because the little GoPro camera I've got, it's in the winter conditions, it just doesn't seem to pick up the colours quite as well as it does in the height of summer, which I imagine, you know, that's only to be expected, isn't it, because the lighting conditions aren't as good. But you can see hopefully that simply by placing a cast shadow under the horse and then putting some line work in the background, it really does place rather than have the animal just on a blank background, it kind of places it in its environment and helps give a little bit of depth even to this simple sketch. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed this little trip into the countryside painting horses from life. As always, please remember, if you're new here, to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and I look forward to seeing you next Sunday for the next episode of The Sunday Art Show. Thanks very much for watching.